Hey Alex, thanks for taking the time to join the interview today. Let's start with a quick introduction. For those who don't yet learn about you, who are you and what business did you start?
So I'm Alex Drysdale. I live in Winnipeg, Canada, most of the time, and I started a business called CRIK Nutrition, where we developed a protein powder made out of crickets.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. I learned that you got the idea of CRIK Nutrition from reading an article while browsing Facebook, am I right?
Yeah, I just one morning I had spent the prior year in Europe being mentored in e-commerce from some friends of mine, and yeah, I'd quit my job, got out of everything I was in before, and just built a prototype site to kind of learn all the ins and outs of basically online sales, what it takes to build a website, market, drop shipping, all everything to do with e-commerce. And I decided once I had a good bearing on that I wanted to do something that was more sustainable. I was in Canada, and I was just flicking through Facebook one morning and saw an article that actually Tim Ferriss posted about cricket protein bars, and that this company had garnered a lot of investment. So I kind of thought it was an odd thing, but I've been into health and fitness my whole life, and Tim Ferriss is usually, quite on the ball with all the new things. So I decided to give it a look and was just blown away by the benefits and just sold on the idea of it within two paragraphs.
Great, great. I'm curious about what have happened after you read the post and find out more about cricket protein. Could you walk us through the process of how you prototype and develop your product?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first heard about it, they were doing protein bars, and I don't really ever eat protein bars, so I wanted to give them a try. But I was just looking at where they got the crickets themselves to see if I could use them more in a protein shake or smoothies. And the article did mention the farm, Entimo Farms, that they were using. And what I did right then and there was ordered some for myself. Actually, first before that, I looked to see if there was anybody actually making a cricket protein powder out there, just because I wanted to use it myself, just to replace the whey that I was using.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I ended up couldn't find anybody online. There was a couple businesses talking about it, and nobody had actually made a actual working prototype or had sold any protein powder. So I ordered some ground up crickets myself. The farm sold those, and I actually called them and talked to them a bit about the idea, and they really, really liked it. So yeah, they sent some product over, and just in my coffee grinder at home, I first was grinding up with different ingredients. As I was waiting for it to get shipped, I went and bought some other just raw proteins, um, you know, stevia, cane sugar, um, vanilla, all these different things I thought could be good to make it a good mixable, ready to drink protein powder. And in the meantime, also used it in my smoothies and that. Then when it came time to turn this into a business, I realized I had something. I liked it. I seen all the steam that was picking up in the cricket industry as far as edible insects. Uh, I basically got on Google and just searched how to manufacture protein powder. And then I spent a few days on there just learning all I could and getting different numbers for different factories or brands. And as soon as I had like a big sizable list that I knew would take a long time to get through, I just got on the phone and started calling people, one after the other, for about 2 weeks straight. And there was a lot of rejections in there. And finally, like, it was actually the last person on my list. They didn't want to work with us either, but they said they had some factory they knew down the road that might be interested in working with us. And sure enough, when I gave them a call, they were really interested in it. So going forward with that, I told them kind of my ideas, and it took a while for us to get on the same page. But once we did that, we sent back some samples back and forth. I tried them myself, and the ones I liked, I tried with friends and family. Then we slowly narrowed that down to something that I thought would be, commercially viable, that the general population would like. So from that point on, I ended up going to a couple different, like a CrossFit event and a bodybuilding competition. I ended up getting a booth, and yeah, just set it up and did taste tests. And wanted to see what the reaction was from people. I actually, people said, hey, maybe don't tell them what it is, but I think some people could have maybe got angry if they didn't know what it was, or who knows, with different allergies and that. So yeah, I told people what it was, wanted to get their feedback, and yeah, the feedback was really, really good. So that was it for me. We knew we had the samples down that we wanted and the formula we could move forward with, and moved into Indiegogo. And yeah, there's some more product development down the way. You know, every time we make an order, I use the feedback that we got from customers to improve the product every time we order the product.
Great, great. So how long is the process that you start from when you get an idea from you get your first customer, or when you get your product done?
Yeah, when I first had the idea pop into my head, I think it was somewhere in November, and by the time we kind of had, you know, getting to know each other, and you know, going through the process of calling all these different factories to actually having a product that I ended up sampling, I believe that was from November till May. So that's about 5-6 months there. But the second time we did a product, you know, I was on a same page with the manufacturer. I knew more. I was more efficient at being able to communicate with them in the language that I knew they needed to hear to get the changes that I wanted. And the second time we did an iteration, I think it only took about 10 days to get that second formula reformulated.
Great, great. So you mentioned that you started on Indiegogo and Kickstarter, am I right?
Yeah, so I actually made a whole profile ready to go on Kickstarter. It was set to launch on Earth Day, and I don't know what happened. Like, it was in there ready to go, approved, and then literally the night before, it kind of sucked because we had all the media attention on it as launching that day, all the articles that had come out prior, and yeah, Kickstarter banned my account and said I was making they wouldn't sell protein powders, and they only give you about 120 or 200 characters to rebut their decision. So I sent them 3 links to other protein powders, and they just banned my account. So I ended up panicked a little bit. I ended up pulling it all together and making a new account on Indiegogo. Yeah, just the day that we launched with that, I spent all day on the phone, you know, on Facebook, Twitter, all the social media, email, everybody I knew that I wouldn't annoy, and reached out to them and asked them, hey, if you're interested, please check it out. And if you kind of like what we're doing, please share it. And we ended up getting funded on the first day. We didn't have a huge goal, but my goal was to hit $10,000 US. And if I could hit $10,000, I felt, you know, selling that product to strangers that had never seen the product or tested it. I felt comfortable enough using some of my savings to create our first run for the product. So at the end of the campaign, we did, I think, about $16,000. And the first order cost me, like on my end, somewhere around 25,000, 30,000, something like that. And yeah, so we did that and shipped that out from the, it was probably within 5 months. I think my campaign ended in July and I shipped out in November. And yeah, that was just a small run of product. And we used what we learned from the customers from trying that just to do some tweaks, like make it less sweet. We created a second flavor, and changed the serving size and that, just to kind of match some of the other, what kind of the other big protein powder companies are doing. So yeah, it's the first time around, it wasn't perfect, but we just got it shipped, got the product out there. Like, as long as I knew that the product tasted good and provided the you know, the benefits that the customers were looking for, those were the main things for me, like packaging and serving size and all that kind of stuff. It was just like, let's get it out the door and we can tweak things based on what customers like later.
Cool. I think that's like nerve-wracking when first a day before launch, then you find out your account got banned and need to move everything to Indiegogo in one day.
Yeah, you know, we didn't get it done in a day. We missed our target site, which sucked because there was a lot of traffic that we missed because of that, and you can't get a hold of anybody at Kickstarter, so it was pretty annoying, to be honest. And working with Indiegogo was a lot smoother and a lot nicer. They have had a lot better customer service. and yeah, the product did really well on there, and made the front page of the food category throughout our whole run. Um, yeah, that was a much better experience doing it that way.
Great. So since launch, what has worked for you to attract and retain customers?
The biggest thing for us has been organic. I really focused on making sure that we ranked in Google. There wasn't much competition at the beginning, and I noticed all the other companies that had started before me were really focusing on paid advertising. So they weren't focusing on organic search results, just because there wasn't that many people searching for cricket protein powder 3 years ago. But I knew, you can see in the trends, and of course now it's even more so that more and more people are searching for cricket protein and cricket protein powder. I didn't have a budget for marketing or advertising, so that was kind of my go-to. We got a lot of really good traffic on our Indiegogo campaign, so I used that and pointed it towards our homepage and all of our social media, and that really helped us propel and stay up in the number one and two spots on Google. So that's been the number one thing. Um, Beyond that has been like word of mouth through our customers, and it's just by, again, doing what we say we do, making sure the cricket is the number one ingredient. Like, people are buying a cricket protein powder, so make sure it's the most that's ingredient that's in there, and just making a really good, tasty product, and providing our customers with really good customer service. And if there's any issues, sometimes we get some I don't know, like some aggravating customers that really are having a bad day, or they just want to cause problems for whatever reason. But if you feel like writing a nasty email, just, put it aside and just be as nice as possible to them, because there could be other things going on. And, people make nasty comments, they're usually not trying to just troll you. It's like they feel this way and they're upset. So, I mean, we've all been in that position as a customer before, where maybe the shipping company wrecked the package, or who knows, right? But yeah, you got to be sympathetic with your customers and just provide them with really good service, and give them what they want. And no matter what that is. And there's only been a couple times where I reached out and I really felt that the customer was kind of being unfair, and I called them personally because they had provided us with our phone number and we're open to communication. So I reached out to them and just asked, and yeah, it turned out they were just having a bad day, and we got it all figured out at the end.
Cool.
And I
Awesome.
guess, yeah, for attracting customers too, I did a couple little marketing and advertising tests, and the the biggest thing that I've seen, like, way head and shoulders of method, is just working with influencers, people that have an audience, but only working with those influencers that truly believe and support your product and have tried it. Like, there's a lot of people that reach out and, oh, we'll share this on our Instagram to our account, blah 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 blah. But when you do it to somebody that uses your product, likes it, and believes in it, that authenticity and like, that just comes through in the advertisement, and in what when they're talking about your product. Like, you can really tell the difference when somebody's just advertising versus when they're supporting and putting themselves behind a product. So that's been the number one thing. And yeah, if we had a little more money right now, I'd be pouring all of the efforts into that.
Great. Good to hear that. Yeah. So let's talk a bit about now and the future. How is CRIK Nutrition doing today? And what does the future looks like?
Yeah, it's been growing steadily. We've doubled every year since we started. The numbers aren't huge. I've been funding and running the company basically myself, and sometimes, like, I hire out warehousing and fulfillment, and final label design and regulatory and manufacturing, of course. But yeah, it's been growing well. Biggest bottleneck is always been money, especially when you're dealing with a physical product, and a physical product that you've developed. It's expensive to make that stuff. And yeah, you can either order a little bit and not make any money because the cost per unit is really high, or order a lot and not have any money left to marketing it. So it's kind of the balance in between of how much inventory can you afford, and can you afford to get that product out there in time and make a profit to continue growing the company. For us right now, we're just having actually a little bit of difficulties with our manufacturer, and we're checking out a couple different places to try and figure out where we can make our last batch, because we're actually just about completely out of product right now, which it used to worry me, but I see other companies, other new startups, that happens all the time. And it's not a big deal, and I'm pretty confident that our customers aren't gonna hate us too much for being out for a few months. But yeah, we're just working on a new manufacturer right now, and as soon as we have that, we'll get our new shipment and a reiteration of the product. That's the next big thing for us. When we first started, I only made a few hundred units, and we sent that out to our Indiegogo people and also sold it on the website. And yeah, we made a lot of big changes between that and our first or our second run of product. And having now shipped out thousands of units, you can start to see more where people have different issues, or they have different suggestions on what you can do to improve the product. So there's a couple big changes that we want to make, add a couple flavors into the line, and there's also a few more products that we want to push out there. But again, that's all going to come down to finding our new manufacturer here who we can work on the same terms with. So yeah, the future looks good. We're growing, and I'm really happy about it. And it's just a matter of making the new product here and getting a reformulation that's going to be a lot more able for some customers to like the vegan customers. A lot of them want it. But there's a few issues they have with the product that we're going to change. Hemp is another big one that I really like to have in the diet, but we're finding that a few customers actually have a problem digesting that. So we're going to remove that out of there, put even more cricket into the formula, and just continue making the product better and adding more products into the product line as we grow.
Good to hear that. I think both of us admit that being an entrepreneur is challenging, especially you are still one person business. Am I right?
I'm sorry?
You are still running it alone, or you have a team right now?
No, yeah, I'm still running most of it alone right now. I also have another business that I spend. Last year, I averaged 80 hours a week working in that, and so I work on CRIK in the evenings, and that's helped me keep CRIK going. And I've made a couple big mistakes in the past that almost cost me the company. And thankfully, I've had this other business that I make good money at, and it's steady, and it's really helped me push through and be able to support CRIK without having to take outside investment from people that again don't have the same vision, and they might see the future in the product, but they don't use it, they don't believe in it themselves, they're just looking at the dollar end of it. So yeah, I didn't really want to go in and take big investments and then essentially have a boss dictating, hey, well, you have to use this ingredient because it's cheaper, or hey, take more cricket protein out of it because it costs too much money. I want to make the best product possible and continue moving the forward company on those values, because I know those things are going to come down in price, like the crickets and that. And I've already seen great price decreases in there. So yeah, it's important for me to be able to not be beholden to other people maybe have the same vision.
Great. Yeah. Speaking of like a few big mistakes you mentioned just now, do you mind to share one of the mistakes that you made that you think might cause your company?
Yeah, for sure. I ended up took about a year and was focused because we had a lot of attention coming our way, and there was a lot of attention coming from some retailers, and I didn't know anything about retail, and I spent a year flying around and meeting with people, and I was taking advice from people that have been in the supplement industry for decades, and quite honestly, I went against my gut. And that would be my biggest advice for any entrepreneur is, it's really important to take advice from people that are more experienced and more successful than you. And, they know what they're talking about, but at the end of the day, they don't know the nuances of your personal, financial, location, your exact nuances of your business. They don't know all those specifics, so they're giving you like a very coarse bit of advice, and you need to, sometimes fine tune that. And I think it's really important to focus on your intuition and your gut and trust yourself. And that's something I spent a lot of last year working on, because for myself, I've had big success when it comes to doing things that scare me. And it's kind of a fine line to know whether, you're just, you don't want to do something because you're afraid, because you don't know the outcome, or whether, it's your intuition telling you, hey, maybe you should sit down and go through the numbers, or really look into this further before committing to it. So yeah, my biggest mistake was focusing on retail, and kind of going into that space and making decisions for the company based on the idea that retail was going to be the main way to go, whereas I should have focused on online and manage my inventory levels in that mindset, and made decisions more with avoiding retail, because I was looking at some competitors and some of the traction they were getting, and I made decisions based on that, and it was, quite frankly, at the time over my head a little bit, and I didn't really understand the retail space. And that being said, for as scary as that was, and how it almost caused me to fail at this beyond something that I could repair, I did learn a hell of a lot, and probably more than if I would have gone to university for 2 or 3 years. So I don't regret it. I look back and be like, oh man, I wish I would have trusted my gut. But I spent last year like reading and getting coaches to help me refocus on my intuition, and learning to trust that gut feeling when it came to my business.
Cool. I'm curious, what have been the most influential books, podcasts, or resources to you during this journey?
Yeah, I could wrap off a whole bunch here, man. And it depends what stage you are in your business, and where, how big of an impact that can make. And, you can read a book at one point in your life and it's like, oh, that was a good book. And then read it a couple of years later and it's like, holy crap, that really changed my life. So I'll just kind of go with some of the easy ones here from the beginning. And it was like, you got to fix your mindset. So something like whoever works for you, like something like Think and Grow Rich. Meditations by Marcus Aurelius is a really good one. When you start getting more into your business, or even at the beginning, something like Built to Sell or The E-Myth Revisited are really good. Again, those are all kind of just mindsets and how to get into it. The Automatic Customer, again, is another really good book. I think it's the same guy that wrote Built to Sell. That's a really, really important one for any business, and on how to kind of set up different subscription models and basically guaranteed income. Man, I got my big bookshelf over here. There's a whole bunch to go through, but I mean, getting more into that, it has been more specific books based on marketing problems I've had, or if you want to get into something that's heavily based on advertising, any of the ClickFunnels guys books like Expert Secrets or .com Secrets, like those are really good ones too. I could wrap off 100 books right now that have been big, but those are kind of the big ones for me, like the main ones. So I think it's important to have your mindset right first, and then for podcasts, I pick specific ones out. I read the bios a little bit, so I won't listen to every one from people, but I'll kind of look at ones that I think can help and can help me grow as a person. So a lot of Tim Ferriss podcasts, a lot of Joe Rogan ones. He has like really amazing guests on there. The MF CEO by Andy Frisella, that for motivation and mindset, I think every single person needs to listen to that. The MF CEO. That is such an amazing podcast. And then one of his business partners, Ed Milet, has a really good podcast too. And those are kind of the main business ones that I spend a lot of time listening to. And then, as for resources, I really like, the Sumo blog, Quick Sprout, Neil Patel, digitalmarketer.com. Digitalmarketer.com, they're such a phenomenal phenomenal, high quality content resource, and their conference too. Their conference, the people that you meet there, and the different things that you're going to learn, those are just life changing. Trying to think of what else. Yeah, those are kind of the big ones. I think there's one called Orbit Media too that is a really good resource for online businesses. Yeah, so that kind of encompasses the kind of main ones I was thinking of off the top of my head.
Great, great. Yeah, I have one last question before we end this interview. Like you mentioned just now that one of the biggest less advice you have for entrepreneurs is to receive feedback and advice, but also to trust their guts and intuition. What is the second biggest advice that you give entrepreneurs who want to get started or just starting out?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things. It's like trust your gut is a big one, and really take advice and be mentorable. Like, don't if somebody gives you advice, don't make sure you follow it and apply it, or at the very least show them evidence of you applying it before and why it worked and why not. Or if somebody gives you a couple books to read, read them and then shoot them back a little email there saying, hey, I read this and this and this and it's great because blah blah blah, thanks for the advice and I applied it to my life and this is how it helped. And, because a lot of people email me and stuff now for help, and man, most people just waste your time. I used to go and meet with everybody, but it is just a lot of, now I just kind of give a couple books, and if they read them and can show that they have, it really helps, in me wanting to invest more time in helping them. And then, the other one is, for negative feedback and trolls and angry customers, it's your customers are right. And kind of the way I look at that is that I kind of touched on it earlier before, but I mean, even if it's really mean and angry and whatever, the person is writing that for a specific reason. So whether it's true or not, your customer believes that to be true for most cases. So it's you should really take to heart what your customer's saying. And whether, like I mentioned, it was just a bad day, or whether, hey, maybe, they said it's impossible to contact them, blah, 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 blah. It's well, maybe you got to look at the color or the size of the font you're using or the style of font you're using for your phone number on your website, or where it's placed, or whatever. But really seriously consider any customer requests you have, because it's shitty being a customer and having high expectations and then not having those met, and then being kind of blamed when it's well, I believe this about this product, it didn't meet my expectations, and now they're arguing with me. So for me, that's kind of how I look at it. I do not argue with customers. You got to really take and consider their point of view, and especially too with feedback too. I love working with people that are brutally honest, because too many people are too nice, especially your friends and family. You got to get people that aren't necessarily emotionally invested in your feelings, or feel like they need to make sure you're happy. When I've done startup weekends and stuff like that, and we get mentored by different VCs or angels, I always pick the guy that everybody's scared of, because he's going to give you the real advice and he's not going to be afraid to hurt your feelings, because the real reason for that is they want you to be successful. So it's don't be afraid of critical feedback or even negative feedback, even a negative person, because they might be able to pick out things that the happy-go-lucky positive people might miss. So that's a bit of a few things. So trust your gut, trust your customers, and it's really important to pay attention and consider negative feedback.
Awesome. Those are I believe those are very good advice. So to trust your gut, trust your intuition, customers, and also to accept especially critical feedback. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And don't be a perfectionist too, because I have a problem with that, and that kind of comes with, in the book, The E-Myth Revisited, they talk about working in your business versus working on it. So ship the product, make sure it works and it does what you say, but the packaging doesn't have to be perfect. It's I can't, if you wait till you have the perfect fulfillment warehouse with the perfect price or whatever, it's nah, get that product out there. get it to people, get feedback, and you're going to learn a lot more too. So yeah, don't be a perfectionist.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, I think that marks the end of the interview today. So thanks for your time here. Yeah, for those who want to learn more about Alex and CRIK Nutrition, you can go to criknutrition.com. Thanks again to Alex from CRIK Nutrition.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.